He is risen. Almost 1,000 years before this day, an ancestor of Jesus was called to be king, and he went to fight an enemy of God, and the armor did not fit, and so he went to the field naked. It was David who was on his way to becoming who God called him to be, and with one stone he felled the enemy of God, and in his nakedness triumphed until they dressed him and adorned him with many things that would make him king. 1,000 years later, his descendant, who would also be king, went to fight the battle naked. And though we have covered him with cloth on our crosses, and we don't want his humiliation to be too much, you must understand that Jesus was naked when he went to fight for us, and he did not even have a stone. He hanged on the cross, naked and wounded, and where David was triumphant and had no wounds, Jesus took all of those into himself. And there he went, and there he died, and there was another one stone. This time it was not in a slingshot. It was placed in front of the door of his tomb, and that stone was to be a sign and a block that death had once again been the victor, no matter who had won the particular fight. And so it is no mistake that on this day, that when Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb, the first thing she notices is that the stone is not there. The one stone had been removed from the forehead of Goliath, and this stone had been removed from the face of the tomb. Now, in some of the stories, it says the stone was rolled away. In another story, it says an angel sat on the stone and talked to them. I like to believe that in this story, the stone has been removed. Some angel came and just threw it away. Some simple toss of something heavy that was a burden for us, but was not a burden for God. And so that stone has been removed. And we might imagine that on Easter morning, whether you like it or not, when he was unwrapped from his linen garments, when he was unmoved from the thing that almost kept him mummified, or at least kept him so that as he decomposed, they could hold his bones together, that Jesus came out of that tomb smelling like myrrh and herbs, but he was naked once again, very much like a baby coming out of the womb of a mother covered in various baby things. You know what those are. But unlike the womb, this new place, this grave, was dead. It was stony. There was no life until God decided to make it alive. And so Jesus came out of that tomb naked as a baby on Easter morning and then began wandering around. And this was the news that indeed he was alive. This is what Peter had to say to the Roman centurion Cornelius when his family was converting to Christianity. We're telling you he's alive, and we didn't realize that his life was going to even touch people like you. This Sunday is not just for religious people or for people that are doing the right thing and coming to Easter. This day is for every person who shares the solidarity of having human flesh, for every person who's ever been carried in some kind of womb, and for every person that will go to some kind of grave. That grave has become a place of new birth. That stone that we tend and those things that we keep as memorials and some kind of testament to one that we loved, those things have now been altered because this descendant of David fought naked on our behalf, and he won. He took death and killed it. He took captivity and made it captive itself. And this is why we celebrate this holy day of Easter. Now you'll notice that Mary Magdalene said several times, I want to find his body. Where has he been laid? Where has he been laid? Where has he been laid? Excuse me, sir, did you take him? Where has he been laid? Because she thinks the only way that she can express her love for the risen Christ is by caring for what's left of his body. And anyone who's ever lost someone, anyone who's been marked with grief, knows that same concern. I will care for what is left. I will honor and keep it. Our high school students are performing Antigone this week, so if you want to see some classic Greek theater, you can go see Antigone. And it is a story all about the anxiety of caring for one who is dead, showing them the proper ritual and the proper love so that they do not just become untended in their dying. The meaning of this day is to say that your love now has a new purpose and a new direction. It will not just mean caring for the dead. It will not just mean caring for the broken pieces and the broken parts. It will mean that love now goes and embraces even death and dying and announces that God has brought life even there. You are to become an ambassador of this Easter life, this Easter nakedness, this Easter hope, this Easter newness, this Easter gift. And you are to go and you are to love. And like Peter, be surprised again and again that God's love reaches people that you think it did not apply to. And like Peter says, well, we realize once again that God shows no partiality. Peter says that more than once in the book of Acts, because again and again he is surprised by the love and power of the resurrection, by the movement of the Holy Spirit. And Peter realizes he's not in charge of dispensing the gift, he's merely in charge of sharing it and also rejoicing when he finds it in unexpected places. Now there is a curious detail in the text. We see that John and Peter have run. It's about a 3/4 of a mile run from the upper room to where the tomb was. So I don't know how you do with about the mile run. We find out Peter's not in that great a shape, but he was up all night, so he could blame that. But they run, and they look at the tomb, and all they see are the grave clothes, those sort of swaddling clothes that are now off the naked body of the risen Christ. They look in twice, and that's all they see, the evidence that he was there. And then Mary almost sees refracted through her tears, when she looks in the third time, she sees that the tomb isn't quite empty. She sees two angels, one sitting at his head, one sitting at his feet. Now, for any of you who are students of the Bible, or if you like Indiana Jones, you will remember that the two angels are the living throne of God, the Ark of the Covenant, the mobile throne of God, to be taken with the people of Israel from the place of Sinai everywhere they might go, that they will know that God is with them. Until finally, that Ark of the Covenant was put into the Holy of Holies and did not move, and it was to say that God was enthroned in this holy place, and God was somehow separated from the world so that God's holiness was not offended, until in the Babylonian exile that throne was destroyed or lost, or whatever you think happened to it. This is the idea that Christ has set up his throne in the tomb. Not in the Holy of Holies, not in the nicest church, not among the holy people. God has gone to the place of death and sits enthroned upon the angels. And the angels are sitting there waiting for their Lord to return. The angels are sitting there waiting for him to come and be enthroned again. And this is the whole point when they go, "Who are you looking for? What are you doing here? Have you come to worship?" And she goes, "No, I'm looking for his body." "Oh, he was just here." But of course, before they can have a conversation with her, Jesus himself appears. It is a reminder to us that God has chosen to be enthroned in the place of death. God has chosen to be enthroned in the place of grief. God has chosen to be enthroned in the place of impossibility, so that we who find ourselves in the fear of death, in the valley of the shadow of death, afraid of the violence that comes with death, no longer have to be afraid. God has made death his servant. And if you don't believe that, he has placed his throne in the enemy camp. This would be like going to Berlin in World War II and saying, "We're now ruling from here." It'd be like the Ukrainians going to Moscow and saying, "We're now ruling here." It is going to the very place where the enemy has ruled and setting up your throne and saying, "There's a new regime in town, and it is the regime of Easter. It is the gift of this new life." You will notice that after Mary has her encounter with Jesus, after Jesus reorients her to what God is doing, and even lets her know that God's not even done yet with the gift. That's what's so wonderful. When Jesus says, "Don't hold on to me," what God is saying is, be ready for me to do even more on your behalf. More is coming. More is happening. More life, more power, more Easter, more resurrection. Hold on, because the ascension's happening soon. And so he allows her this light embrace, but he does not allow her to stay in that moment. And it says she leaves, and she herself becomes a kind of angel. That's the Greek word that gets used. She becomes a kind of angel whose message will always be contextualized and refer to this tomb that is no longer empty, this living Christ. And you have to understand that part of what Easter is calling you to do, apart from reorienting your love beyond the realm of what we think is possible, is telling the story of your life and telling the story of the story of the world in the context of the empty tomb. You become a kind of angel for this day. That's why Mary goes and tells them what she's seen. And so you go with a message, but you go with the love. As we often do almost every week, I give you some opportunity or something, something you can do to show your faith in our community. We're better now. I give you some opportunity. I had a meeting with the police this week, and for many months there's been a conversation about how it is that the faith community can become ministers of sorts, neighbors of sorts, caretakers of sorts, to those who are in our navigation center on Beach Boulevard. If you've driven up Beach Boulevard, you've seen the large tent where we have almost 200 homeless people every day in some sort of state, hopefully toward housing or towards health. And what they're looking for are people who can come and help people apply for jobs, be a listening ear, be someone that sits and offers a kind of spiritual consolation. It's all done in a very non-sectarian way. You're just being a neighbor, but we're being motivated by our faith. And if you want to be part of that, the city is doing a training at the end of this month, and you can tell me, and I will tell them, and they will put you on the list. And if you don't do this training, it'll be about 4 Wednesdays, once a week. You can do another one. But it's this idea that we have to be the concrete presence of resurrection in our community. We have to be the people who understand that the love that has burst open that stone, the love that has set up a throne in the grave, the love that has reoriented the story of the world according to Easter, must be lived out by we who share the sign of the cross and we who bear his name. And this is just one more way you can do it. And so if you want to do it that way, you can let me know. But you may have a different calling, and I hope you will find out for yourself how it is that you can be a bearer of this Easter message. Because we are not just sharing the Easter message with our words. We are doing it with a kind of love. We are doing it with an angelic proclamation. We are doing it in the words of Isaiah, "Lo, you are the God we are waiting for, and indeed you have saved us." He is risen.